Hello and welcome back to Take 6. I am streaming executive producer Thomas Mates in for Julie Broughton, and I need to adjust my camera because my chin is being cut off. There we go. That's a little better. All right. So as I said, I'm in for Julie Broughton today. She is out on assignment, and tomorrow she is going to be filling in for evening meteorologist Jonathan Kegas. So you're stuck with me for today and tomorrow. How lucky are all of you? So today we've got a lot going on. We're going to be speaking with News 6 political analyst Jim Clark, talking a little bit about Donald Trump's cabinet picks, the Republicans taking control of the House in addition to the Senate and the White House, and what that means. But we'll also be taking a look at the forecast and some big changes there. Good news perhaps, depending on how you feel about cooler temperature. And of course, we'll get a look at the tropics where things are still developing, but it may not be what we initially thought that it could be. So all that's going to be coming up in just a little bit. Before that, as we said yesterday, it is cold and flu season, and you should be prepared. You should protect yourself from the cold and the flu, and well, there's no better way to do that than by getting a flu shot. So to tell us more about that, we are joined right now by News 6 reporter Stephanie Rodriguez at another free flu shot event. Stephanie, how are you doing, and where are you?
Hey, Thomas. Yeah, I'm doing great. We're here in Claremont. We're here on 2345 East Highway 50. It's another Advent Health Centra Care location for our final flu clinic. It's the third one of the week, just like the one we had yesterday in Orlando and the one we had on Monday. Runs from 2 to 5, so they're getting set up here, getting ready for everyone to come out. Free, no insurance needed, and it's quick and it's easy.
That is great. And so they are getting set up right now. It runs from 2 to 5, as you said. And just as yesterday, there is like a small army of people out there right now getting ready to get people in and out quick and easy. Just walk us through a little bit of the setup and you know, like just sort of the general hustle and bustle that's going on there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's right here in the parking lot, and they're setting up tents. It's a similar setup that we've seen at our other two check-ins. Flu clinics, I should say, but you come in, you check in for your flu shot, and there's going to be just an army of people ready to give you your free flu shot here. And there's also food. News 6 will also be here, so you can get some free swag from us as well. There'll be some music, some food, and there's also going to be some face painting for the kids. So if you come and you are getting your flu shot and you want to bring kids and get them a flu shot as well, there's some fun activities, so it'll be an enjoyable experience for the whole family.
That's great. And as we had said previously, it takes about 2 weeks to get the flu shot to kick in. So the best time to get it was probably 2 weeks ago, but the second best time is today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spoke to Dr. Thomas Hendricks from Advent Health earlier today, and he said the peak season is typically normally January, February, but last year it started around December. So it's kind of unpredictable. So you want to make sure you're protected as soon as possible. So if you can get it now, you can get those antibodies necessary so you can ward off the flu in case the season does begin early again this year like they saw last year.
Yeah, and if you get it today, about 2 weeks from now is Thanksgiving. So just in time for those indoor gatherings that we're all going to have with friends and family, catching up with your friends from high school or wherever, but you're going to be in close proximity with all these people. So you really want to make sure you're protected.
Yes, absolutely. And, children and seniors are the ones that are encouraged the most, as well as people with pre-existing conditions. But if you're young and you're healthy, doctors encourage that you get it as well so you can contain the spread, so you don't give it to grandma when you see her at Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. All right, Stephanie, well, give us the address one more time and the times and everything like that, and then we'll let you go.
Absolutely. So 2 to 5 here at the Centra Care location on 2345 East Highway 50 at Claremont. In Claremont, I should say. We also have some information about the location on Click Orlando. So if you need to check it out, we have that information there as well.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you again coming up at 4 and 4:30 this afternoon. And make sure that you stop by out there, get some free swag, get your flu shot, get some food, make a day of it. But if you need it to be quick and painless, they can accommodate that as well. Stephanie, thank you so much for your time. All right. Have a great day. All right. So now we are going to move along, and we are going to be talking with there we go. We're going to be speaking with political analyst and UCF history professor Jim Clark. Now, Jim, I know that you have been watching the cabinet picks of President Trump as intently as all of us here at News 6. But first, before that, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for joining us and giving us your time. But what's stuck out to you the most so far from the picks that have been announced?
Actually, Tom, what we've learned is that you and I are the only Floridians not in the Trump administration. It seems like there's a parade here going to Washington with Senator Rubio becoming Secretary of State, now Congressman Gates from the Panhandle being named Attorney General, Susie Wiles, his a Floridian, is his Chief of Staff. So you're going to see a lot of Florida faces in the new administration.
Yeah, so I mean, Donald Trump himself, towards the end of his last administration, switched his own residency to Florida. So it's Florida from the top all the way down, it seems. What's been the most surprising of those Florida picks? I think maybe we could all agree that the elephant in the room, pun intended, would be Matt Gaetz there. Well, tell us a little bit about his bona fides and then what this could mean in his administration.
Yeah, basically in his first administration, Trump named a bunch of people who were strangers to him. And a lot of those appointments, for various reasons, did not work out. So I think this time he is determined to appoint people he knows well, including Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is a congressman from Pensacola. His dad was in the state legislature. He is a law school graduate. He does have a law degree from William and Mary, and but he is going to be extremely controversial, and there's some real questions whether or not he can get approved.
And Donald Trump has accounted for that somewhat in that he has been pushing for the Senate to adjourn. That was part of his pitch with pushing for Senator Rick Scott for taking over the Senate leadership. Can you explain to us a little bit why he wanted that adjournment and what that would mean for his potential appointments?
Yeah, this started with George Washington. Back then, transportation was very crude, and so it often took senators and representatives weeks to get to either Philadelphia at first and then later to Washington. And so the Constitution allowed presidents to make interim appointments. Sometimes also Congress wouldn't meet for 9 months, and we needed a Secretary of War or Secretary of State. And so the Constitution said the president can appoint people during these recesses without approval of the Senate.
And so that would seem to think that this is maybe Trump trying to get these maybe more slightly controversial appointments through without necessarily the scrutiny of a Senate confirmation. I know a lot of people initially were kind of pointing the finger at an RFK appointment as to being the reason for maybe pushing for that, but Matt Gaetz seemed to come out of the blue a little bit.
Matt Gaetz has surprised everyone. Senators yesterday were shocked, and the reaction has been pretty negative, not only from Democrats, which is expected, but also Republicans. There are already indications that he may run into trouble there. 4 Republicans would need to switch to deny him his shot at Attorney General. But what President Trump is hoping to avoid are Senate hearings, which could bring up the Seminole County case, which involved Joel Greenberg and that mess there, and which led to accusations that Matt Gaetz had sex with a teenage girl under 18.
Mm-hmm. And as we're talking about this, he has Matt Gaetz, after the announcement, resigned his post from Congress, and there was an ethics investigation. What's happened with that ethics investigation circling around those accusations?
Yeah, they were about to release their report, and he resigned quickly, I think, in hopes of stopping that. Usually, when a member resigns under a a cloud, they stop the investigation and no more is heard of it. I think that's what he was trying to accomplish. But now the House is saying we're going to release the report anyway. And since the House is controlled by Republicans, that could be a real slap at Matt Gaetz if it is a negative report, because the committee could say, hey, he's gone. We don't have any authority. We're going to bury this report.
Yeah, and the his resigning also could have some implications for the House majority as a whole, which we're now finding out could be under Republican control yet again, giving Donald Trump even potentially greater influence, given that his party would have control of both houses of the legislature.
Yes, he's got the House by about the same margin as last time. I think the Republicans are surprised, given their gains with the presidency and the Senate, that they barely held their own in the House of Representatives. And remember, these people are up in another 2 years. So it could be the Democrats could stage a comeback as soon as 2026.
Now, with Gates resigning, that narrows their lead a little bit. With Elise Stefanik becoming a part of the cabinet potentially, that would also narrow their lead a little bit. Is there any thoughts that this could become a much more narrow majority in the House, or is it likely that those seats that are opening up be also filled by Republicans?
Yeah, Tom, you and I will go to Congress before the Panhandle elects a Democrat. That's simply not in the cards. It is an
Certainly.
extremely conservative district and always has been one of the most conservative in Florida. So whoever they elect to replace Matt Gaetz will be a conservative Republican. And remember, this night might not be over if it turns out that Matt Gaetz is denied a cabinet seat. He, in theory, could come back and run for his old House seat. So this story has a lot more chapters to read.
Certainly. And speaking of replacing or a Republican lawmaker from Florida, Marco Rubio is going to be nominated, or is nominated at least, to be the Secretary of State. How is that process? Let's even jump back a little bit. Marco Rubio and Donald Trump have had a bit of a fraught relationship over the years prior to their newfound alliance. This seems a little bit odd, and also Marco Rubio seems a little bit more on the moderate side compared to a lot of people in Trump's orbit.
No, Marco Rubio is a little bit more moderate generally, but he is a hawk on Cuba. And remember, it was Cuban Americans who made the difference for Donald Trump in Florida. He is, of course, of Cuban descent and is very, very anti-Castro regime, very anti the socialist government in Venezuela. So that's what Donald Trump was looking for, and that's what he found in Marco Rubio.
Yeah, and Trump's previous Secretary of States were also very hawkish on, socialist administrations and regimes, Mike Pompeo, and alike. So perhaps from that perspective, it's a little less surprising.
Yeah, it is surprising. Remember, in 2016, Trump made fun of Marco Rubio, calling him Little Marco. So they have really come a long way in healing that breach.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking, so with Marco Rubio potentially moving on to Secretary of State, obviously he'd have to vacate his Florida Senate seat. What then happens to that seat? We would find out for certain in the new year, in 2025, exactly what's going to happen. Would that just be an appointment by Ron DeSantis to finish out his term, or would that lead to a special election automatically?
Well, generally speaking, the person named gets to serve the next 2 years. There'll be a special election for the House seat. There are very seldom special elections for the Senate seat. So the governor has the power, without any input at all, to appoint whomever he likes to fill out the remaining 2 years. He could even appoint himself, which could be interesting. Remember, the governor is a lame duck. He cannot run again in a couple more years. So he may be eyeing another trip to Washington.
Yeah, certainly as he was, made the run at the White House himself before dropping out in the Republican primary, that could be an interesting development for him, certainly. And so that would be then lead to an election in 26, which would be when Rubio would have been up for re-election to begin with, correct?
Yeah, that would be, you can only serve till the next regular election. So whoever
Mm-hmm.
takes the job, and we had this come up with Orlando's Mel Martinez a few years back when he resigned from the Senate. Then Governor Christ appointed a placeholder, somebody who supposedly was not going to run again, but eventually did run for the Senate,
Mm.
and or he could appoint someone who is a viable candidate for 2026.
Yeah, obviously this would be speculation, but knowing Governor DeSantis and some of the decisions that he made, does it seem more likely that he would be one to put the thumb on the scale and pick someone who would be a long-term serving senator potentially?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Ashley Moody, the Attorney General, has been mentioned. She would clearly be a long-time serving senator. She would
Mm-hmm.
run again and perhaps be elected. But the question, I think, is will the governor try to maneuver himself into the Senate seat, either by direct appointment or running in 2026?
Definitely. That'll be something we'll definitely all be watching out for. I guess my last question would just be just because maybe she's a little bit less of a known entity, but as you said, she is a Floridian. Susie Wiles, she is a historic nomination for the chief of staff at the White House. Can you tell us a little bit about her just so people can kind of get to know who she is?
Yeah, people may be familiar with her dad, Pat. Excuse me, Pat Summerall,
Mm-hmm.
who was the great football player from Florida, and also the CBS football announcer, along with John Madden for years. Extremely popular figure, and he comes from one of Florida's oldest families. People who were here well before the Civil War. So
Um,
she has deep Floridian roots and had worked for Trump in Florida in 2016,
mm-hmm.
then went to work for DeSantis and helped save his campaign for governor. And then he got rid of her in what is a terrible political decision.
Mm-hmm.
And she went back to Trump and helped him get elected. And many people are crediting her with bringing discipline to what had been a disorganized campaign and helping Trump into the White House. So her appointment as chief of staff is historic, but not a surprise.
Yes, as you said, she was one of the architects of this winning campaign. Her and Chris LaCivita, I believe, was the other gentleman who was helping behind the scenes.
Yes.
Yes, and
Yes.
they ran a very less than typical campaign, but I suppose that's sort of natural from a less than typical candidate like Donald Trump. It was very broadcast focused to get the messaging across, and then they were more or less kind of letting Donald Trump be Donald Trump.
Yes. And they were very effective at it, and clearly it worked.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, Professor Clark, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to let you go right now. I know you'll be joining us again later on this afternoon in the 4 o'clock hour. But thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate your insight and your candor as the transition from the Biden administration to the Trump White House.
Thank you, Tom. See you this afternoon.
Thank you. We'll see you then. All right. With that, we are going to take a quick break, and then we will be back with News 6 digital meteorologist David Nazario taking a look at those big changes coming, cooler temperatures, and a little bit of uncertainty still in the tropics, but looking perhaps a little bit better for all of us here in Central Florida. We'll have all those details coming up in just about 2 minutes. Welcome back to Take Six. I am streaming executive producer Thomas Mates. Julie Broughton is out on assignment, but she'll be rejoining. Well, she'll be joining us on News 6 at 4 tomorrow. She is also filling in for evening meteorologist Jonathan Kekis, so I will be back again filling in for Julie. But right now, we've got a little bit of breaking news, and for that, I am going to pull in digital meteorologist David Nazario. I'm assuming you know what I'm going to say, David. We have now Tropical Storm Sarah. Is that correct?
Yep, we're back. We officially have upgraded to Tropical Storm Sarah. This just came across the desk moments ago. Kind of a weird segue. I was really excited to talk cold fronts, but I guess this is now the breaking story. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. Well, my setup was going to be that, we always have you on to talk tropics, and today we can finally get away from that a little bit, but I think we've got to talk about the elephant in the room just a bit. But, as we know, even though it has formed into Tropical Storm Sarah, we are definitely still seeing some differences in the forecast from even just a couple days ago. So why don't you walk us through it all, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Thomas. So, latest information. I wanted to start with the satellite image, but I'm actually going to go ahead and kill this and just swoop right on over to this. So, this is the 1 p.m. advisory courtesy of the National Hurricane Center. You can see the central pressure. We do now have a aircraft in the system as well. We are getting sampling from the Hurricane Center reconnaissance crew up there flying around the system. This is now, ignore the banner. It has not quite caught up just yet. It is Tropical Storm Sarah, not Tropical Storm 19. It was previously Depression 19, but now it is a tropical storm, and it has taken the name of Sarah with a central pressure down to 999 millibars and max sustained winds in the center of circulation at 40 miles an hour. I'll go ahead and play the track. This is going to be a bit of a kind of a surprise for all of us here, as a matter of fact, because I have yet to look at the latest forecast cone since this literally just happened moments ago. Let me go ahead and get ready to play the animation for you, and let's step it on through. So we are expecting just a little bit of intensification as it wanders very, very close to the coastline of Honduras, looks to make a direct landfall into Belize and cross the Yucatan Peninsula and emerge into the Bay of Campeche, the southwest Gulf of Mexico, as Tropical Depression Sarah with sustained winds of 35 miles an hour. We'll have to wait and see exactly what happens over the next 24 hours. This system has been losing latitude, and by that what I mean is we've been kind of dropping further and further to the south ever so slightly as it has moved on closer to the shoreline there. I'll go ahead and fast forward the cone once again so we can get the full thing in front of us, and then I'll grab our handy dandy pen tool so we can draw a little bit. So we had started back near Kingston, and we kind of moved in this sort of a fashion. It lost a little bit of latitude, and now it's trying to regain its consciousness a little bit, if you will. And that's why they literally have this center passing right along the border of Honduras there. The border, I'll draw it since it's underneath the icon there. Hopefully you can see the yellow telestration ink there. That's the border of the country. And as a result, we are looking at some really, really hellacious land impacts to include, obviously, the sustained tropical storm force winds, but inevitably the very heavy rainfall, looking at accumulations well over a foot, if not approaching the 2-foot threshold with the system out there. Now we can finally get back to business. Let's take a look at the satellite image. You can see it has that upside down shrimpy structure that we typically look for tropical cyclones undergoing that development phase. It is still a bit more north and west side loaded. This is actually good news for our folks down there in Nicaragua and Honduras. It looks like we aren't seeing as extensive of thunderstorm coverage as we are over the open water. You can see even the Cayman Islands are kind of getting a little bit of the action there. I'll pull out my pen tool once again. Look at this real strong area of banding that's going on just to the west of Jamaica. Cayman Islands up in through here. It might be a little hard for you to see them there, but they're also taking a brunt of what looks to be Sarah's uppermost feeder banding going on. And there's that shrimp structure. You can see it right in through there. There's the head, and then here comes back the tail. Normally it's the opposite direction, but you know what? We will take it, and that's probably why Hurricane Center has officially given it the designation for Sarah. I went ahead and changed the banner here, even though our spaghetti plots have not fully updated for Tropical Storm Sarah. The same principles apply. You can see we are expecting it to flirt and kiss the coast down there before fully moving ashore the Yucatan Peninsula and Belize. And then we're going to still have to keep an eye on it. I'm not going to beat around the bush with you all. It does look like we're going to have a lot of land to get through before it emerges back over open water and may attempt to do something. So we're not going to take our eyes off of it just yet. We have a number of those ensembles still taking it back through our viewing area, but it looks to be far more of just simply a rainmaker and maybe a bit of a gusty wind maker as opposed to damaging winds and tropical storm, if not hurricane conditions like we were initially anticipating. And here is the reason why. I'm going to show you the clouds and rain courtesy of the GFS. You can see that first front, which is what we're going to segue to here in a moment, is what's bullying it into Central America. Bad news for them, but as we've said before on several updates prior to this, whenever a tropical system forms in an area like the Caribbean, let alone the Gulf, someone is going to receive it. So while Florida is dodging the bullet, somebody has to take the heat. And sad to say, those Central America folk down there, we're going to be thinking of them and sending as much positive prayer power their way over the next 48 to 72 hours until we can get Sarah up out of there. You can see in our neck of the woods, though, high pressure is going to dominate the weather pattern. And as a result, we're going to be looking at pretty good conditions as we go through the weekend. And then that next frontal system is what we're going to talk about here now. That's going to be the big one. That's going to be very interesting. You can see that's what's going to bully the remnants of Sarah. This is next Wednesday night. You can see all the showers and storms over top the Florida peninsula trying to get up into Georgia. That is the remnants, if not could be some kind of subtropical, extratropical-esque low pressure of Sarah as it gets pushed, I should say punched, across our viewing area thanks to that very strong cold frontal boundary that's going to be coming through. Here's where we stand right now. We'll switch over to the live radar shot. You can see we have that first front coming in. You can kind of detect it to the naked eye, looking at the very light rainfall moving through the Panama City area, moving into Apalachicola, the greater Tallahassee metro area as we speak. Nothing over our neck of the woods. Central Florida is looking pretty clear right now, which is good news. And take a look at the national temps. You can definitely see fall is really sneaking in. It has been fairly warm, particularly over the eastern half of the United States, but we're now starting to see temperatures going down into the 40s, the low to mid 50s, and then, of course, Florida being Florida by nature, we're still in the low 80s, but that will be changing here very soon as well. We'll take a look at the forecast temps as we go through the weekend. You can see this is overnight Sunday. This is generally the ballpark of what the weekend is going to look like. Our low temps should hover around the upper 50s, low 60s, with highs topping out somewhere around the mid to upper 70s, we'll say. We're going to finally come down to average temps and get out of the mid to upper 80s with those extensive heat indexes. But then watch this. Watch what happens as we go into the following week, the following weekend, and prepare for the arrival of Thanksgiving week. Look at this massive frontal system, bona fide polar plunge, as we like to call it, for much of the eastern United States, with temps dropping into the upper 30s and low 40s for us as we start the day and kick off our holiday shenanigans, whatever they may look like for you and your loved ones. So we're definitely looking forward to that. If you're one of those Floridians or someone from traveling out of state who actually appreciates a nice dose of cool weather every now and again. I can personally say I love breaking out the fall attire. I feel like we don't really get a chance to dress up and kind of accessorize a little bit in Central Florida. There's the first front. You can see what's left of potential Sarah right there. This is next Wednesday. The winds are increasing off of our west coastline, and you can also see the winds back over the Great Plains off to our west. That's the indication that that next frontal system is getting ready to rock its way through. That's what's going to help to bring our temperatures down as we go through the following weekend. First front is just about here, so it's only a matter of time before we start to feel those cooler temps. Changes are indeed on the way. We're going to finally go back down to normal. Instead of having to deal with humidity, high heat indexes to where the air is literally sitting on you. You may have to take 3 or 4 showers in one day. We're back to finally average temps. And then next week, we're going to see our rain chances going up with that tropical moisture coming through. Last but certainly not least, before I turn the mic back over to our lovely host, Thomas, we're going to take a look at the 3-day forecast, look at that dramatic change in temps, at least dramatic to our taste here in Florida, going from the mid 80s today into the upper 70s tomorrow and into the weekend. The next 7 days, to no surprise, you can see rain chances are going to start to go up on Wednesday, but then also look at those temps. Look at the low temps, folks. We go from 66 overnight Monday into Tuesday to 58 on Wednesday, and they will only continue to go down from there. So definitely looking forward to that. Are you, Thomas?
Oh, absolutely. The idea of having a chilly Thanksgiving that made me very
Yeah.
happy inside. I get to actually break out my
Likewise.
flannels from the Rubbermaid container and
I got to stow them away, dust them off.
Exactly. I've mentioned before, I'm from Pennsylvania initially, and I've never fully acclimated to the Florida heat. So having some real fall weather is a real treat for me. I'm sorry we had to take away your potential of breaking the streak with tropical weather here, but I do appreciate your
it's okay.
insights. Maybe
It's almost over.
almost over. Maybe by this time next week, if we have you on Take 6, we can just talk about those cold fronts and be done with it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me on today, Thomas.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we'll see you soon. You're off tomorrow, but you'll be back on Monday with another stream updating us all on the weather.
Correct. Exactly.
All right. You have a great day, and I'll let you go take care of everything else you need to take care of now. All right, folks, that does it for us. We are out of time. We've actually run a little over time, 1:02. That is a late end to Take 6 for us. But thank you all so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. I hope you have a pleasant day. We'll be back at 4 o'clock this afternoon, along with Julie Broughton. She'll be back giving the forecast this afternoon starting at 4. So we will have all your news and weather and everything you need to finish out your day coming up at 4 o'clock tonight. And, of course, you can always get the latest on clickorlando.com. Thank you, and have a pleasant day.